Hi there. We've made it halfway through the month so far, and I hope you're enjoying these interviews. If you're finding wisdom or moments of clarity in them, I want to let you know that there's a lot more. So there's not only 8 more interviews to come this month, but there's also going to be a Awaken Authenticity program, which will be a guided journey of the self. It'll be 4 months long, and you can undertake this either in a group setting or one-on-one with me. I will be sharing more about this soon, but I wanted to let you know what's coming up. And if you are interested in it and want to hear more about it now, you can go to www.awakenoauthenticity.com, click on book a session, and click on the discovery calls, which are free 30-minute conversations with me to see whether this is right for you or not. Hello, everybody. This is Alyssa with Awaken Authenticity, and I'm so excited to bring to you my friend Erin, who is a woman who I met years and years ago in Boston, who was, we met through the dance scene, and she's just this incredibly creative spirit and just is going always. Like, she just doesn't stop. She's super thrifty. She's super conscientious and super generous, and she's just a marvelous person. So I'm really happy to bring her on. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. That was quite an intro.
Anything you would like to introduce yourself as that I missed, or just like tell people how you show up in the world or what you do or anything like that?
I kind of lately have said that, I have lived many lifetimes in my short amount of life. So yeah, people are always, when they start talking to me, I try not to overwhelm people with the information that I possibly have. And I'm a researcher by schooling and very interested in science. So I tend to, you're right, go all the time, research everything, and live everything. I don't ever not. I never let an opportunity go by that I'm interested in.
That is so true. So the last time I was really hanging out with you regularly, which was probably about a decade ago.
I know, I can't believe it's been long.
You would just churn out these creative projects like one after another. You have an idea and it's done like within an hour. I mean, you're just freaking incredible the way that you churn that out. Are you still?
Yeah, I'm still that way. I try to take it a little more easy ish, but no, that definitely happens. Sometimes I mull it over a little bit longer in my head, if I want it to be a certain specific way and how I want it done, just because I can deconstruct it in my head and then reconstruct it, which I don't know that a lot of people do or even think about. But I did have a friend years ago that she also made those same observations, and she's like, I don't understand how you are able to do all the things you do and not have any fear about it. And I was like, why are you fearful about something that first of all, maybe you've never done, and who's gonna be upset with you if it's not done perfect? Will they know? They won't know. Just do it. And so she said that from then on that she always heard my voice in her head and said, oh, just do it, just whatever.
Jump in.
Do it.
Can you share with us, is there something nearby or just that you can tell us about that to give us an example of something that you've made recently?
Recently, oh my gosh, I did make these earrings. Does that count?
Lovely. Yeah.
Let me see. Recently, well, really, I've been like clothing wise, because I'm in more of a clothing field currently.
Mm-hmm.
I've been altering clothing. If I find something at the thrift store that I feel is high quality and I like, and I can see a vision for it, I've been altering it, either smaller or change it or making things into a vest and that were coats, and really reusing materials that are higher quality than I can either afford or manufacture today.
Cool. Very cool. And I love how that, I mean, there's the cost element, but there's also the environmental element. And I really appreciate that you are such a fervent reuser of materials.
I will say about these earrings that I did get these from the thrift store. I mean, I did get the leather from the thrift store, so most people are like, oh, I wouldn't do leather, but I only use leather if it's recycled. So
And that's interesting. I mean, they totally look like feathers. I didn't realize it was leather until you said that. That's cool.
yeah, I'll show you the bag that I also made out of it.
Cool.
And it was out of a leather skirt.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
So
that's like a super fancy clutch.
And I used the liner from another project, and made the tassel and everything. So it's a really fancy clutch. It was made out of a skirt that was uber tiny, uber tiny.
That's so cool.
But I had leftovers, so I made other things with it.
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing. So when you said earlier that you have lived several lifetimes within a single lifetime, I kind of feel like that myself, and I think for very different reasons. But can you tell us sort of some of the episodes of your life or some of the different parts of your life that maybe a lot of people haven't experienced in the time frame that you have?
At one point, I could say that like all the lifetimes that I lived, it was from like doing certain actions in certain parts of my life. So when I was younger, I attended the archaeology and paleontology. I did that for 12 years, but I did that when I was really young, and I worked with the State Museum of Natural History in Alabama. I went on their field expeditions during the summer. So I had that background, which also went over into the fact that I'm a geologist by schooling, and I curated my school's fossil collection. So, that is like most people in their lifetime, they're like, oh, I did this. And you're like, great. But like you said, I go all the time, and I'm self-motivated in that situation. And so that spawned going into belly dancing. If I see something I'm interested in, I usually fulfill that in, either researching it or just immersing myself in that culture. For as long as I am happy with it, but let's see, belly dancing would be one. And then I did Taekwondo for quite a few years, and I got high up in the belts and went to the Alabama State Olympics, which I'm not really sure is a thing, but that's what they said. And I placed gold for both.
Wow.
Forms. So, I did that for a while. And then I'm an adventurer, so I travel. I love to wake up one morning if I have a chunk of time and say, hey, what do I want to do today, and go do it. So just for an example, I woke up and I realized I had a block of time for a week for vacation, and I called my friend and I said, hey, what are you doing next week? And she's like, nothing. I was like, pack your bag, let's go. So we went to the Grand Canyon.
That's so awesome. It's a good use of time.
Right. So I would say like just activities have been a major focus in my life as well. I hike the Appalachian Trail by myself. When you're on the trail, you're always with family, i.e. you meet new people and you make new families.
Right.
Although I will circle back to that because that will be another point that I want to make. I also roller derbied for 7 years, and I did that nationally for quite a few years as well.
So, I didn't realize that.
And I was on the top teams.
Wow.
So I did skate in a high ranked team. We traveled, we did all that, and went to nationals, and so I did do that for quite a while too. So that's since I've seen you as well.
Oh my gosh, I missed so much.
So I'm gonna circle back to hiking the Appalachian Trail. So at one point I had like a stream of tough jobs, and everybody, well, I don't know about everybody, but once you get to a certain point in you are interested in like maybe reaching out and seeing what you can do or different jobs or more interesting jobs. I just fell into a really bad stream of bad jobs, and I was kind of unhappy with life and people at that point. And so I decided to take the money I had made and saved and go to the Appalachian Trail and hike for 6 months, which was very therapeutic and definitely blossomed my feelings for humankind again.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always felt like when I went to go paddle the Mississippi, I thought I need some wilderness time alone. Like I really need to be my introvert self and not talk to anybody for a while. And then I got out on the water and I realized, like, number one, I was more social on the river than I ever am at home. And number two,
Yes.
people are so wonderful and helpful, and it just totally cured my, I don't know, I had a renewed sense of faith in humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. When I needed help, people would help. That wasn't the issue. And people were so kind,
Yeah.
which I feel like in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and especially cities, people forget. They forget.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did that. But on the other hand of that, it spawned me to do some definitely internal investigation or more internal growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will say that I did go to therapy and was very helpful. And I went to like dealing with just issues with people, how to grow and go forward from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I started, like I said, researching. I started like investigating like the whole aspect of like how to interact with people more effectively. And in doing so, I have this new job and I can use those skills in a more efficient manner. And I feel a lot more complete and connected to people a lot more than I possibly did in the past. So
Yeah.
even though I made friends and had these connections with people that I do, you know, every once in a while catch up with, I just feel like it's more genuine and it's more in the moment.
Awesome. And so I know that, I don't know, I hope you're okay talking about this, but I know you've been married a few times. Can you tell us about how those marriages have changed you, or have, what the experience of having been married several times has done for your life? Good, bad?
Wow. Yeah. No, actually, okay. So I've been married twice.
Mhm.
I may or may not be married again. I don't know. You never can tell with these things.
Yeah,
Uh, I will say it definitely depends on the person.
for
And
sure.
even so, it, it may, even if you're compatible, it may not always be the right thing to stick out.
Mhm.
Um, which is hard to say, and it's hard to, so it's hard for people. I think when you say that, it's hard to people to understand. It's like, yes, I'm best friends with my ex, but it wasn't, we're more of a best friends in the way that we're much better as friends than we were together.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe some people not misconstrue, but maybe feel like, oh, well, you should have been happy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like there's more. Like, I don't know. If anything in my life, I feel like there's always more that 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 could be done, or that people, grow and facilitate each other. And I wanted to be with someone who made me want to grow and not feel stagnated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
And
that's, yeah.
I mean, just from watching your life on Facebook, it seems like you have continued to grow since you're no longer with him.
Right. No, and we're completely like, we're copacetic in that,
Yeah.
and we talk all the time, and yeah, no, it's perfect. I can't say that necessarily about my first husband. Mistakes were made.
You learn. I mean, and that's one of the things that through doing all of these interviews, I feel like there's something that connects everybody, is that failures are only failures in the moment when you feel like, oh no, what have I done? Or why has this befallen me? But in retrospect, most times failures are just an opportunity to examine and change and learn and grow. And I think that's a really important thing to recognize, is that just because you haven't succeeded once doesn't mean that you won't in the future.
That's true. That's very true. I also feel like there's in the country itself, because I have traveled all over the country and lived all over the country. I grew up in the South, like you.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's still, especially in our generation, I don't think the newer generation feels this necessarily so strongly, is that maybe your family will be disappointed in you, and you always have that stinking feeling of, am I disappointing someone? But it's kind of also strange in the fact that I'm not so tied to my family that way. So to have that so ingrained in me, I feel like it's got to be much stronger in other people, especially around our age.
Totally. No, I feel like there are a lot of things in my own life that I thought were coming just from myself. And I was like, I don't care what my family thinks. I want to do science because I want to do science. And then when I really look at it, a huge part of why I wanted to do science is because it was expected or like something that it was not only expected, but respected. And I wanted the respect. And it was okay for me to go toward science studies because I was good at it and because I enjoyed it. Like, I legitimately enjoyed scientific stuff, but I realized that the expectation to go into a scientific field, be all end all, just be a scientist, that's not me. Like, I'm a scientist, but I'm also a creator, and I'm also a connector. And I really care not only about the environment and conservation, but I really care about policy, and I really care about social justice, and I really care about creating art as a way to connect people. And, I can't do all of that if I go into a field where people are, paying me to do all science all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I did try. I did actually, when I was a full-time geologist, mind you, probably 50 hours. I also was doing roller derby about 2 to 3 hours every night.
Wow. Oh, that's a long day.
That's a long day. I wouldn't push myself that far now, but at the time I could do it. I think that getting a little older and more mature, it's not that the fact that you're putting, well, yes, you will have energy constraints. I mean, that's just how it is. But I feel like you also prioritize what you want and what you feel that will fulfill you more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like, you prioritize things. You're like, okay, what am I going to really get out of this? Is this going to make the difference that you want and fulfill yourself in a way that is beneficial in the future? I mean, obviously I could do crafts all day, but it's like, is that beneficial for me? What am I getting out of this? Is this something that's therapeutic for me? Is this my form of painting? Which is kind of how it is sometimes. But I've also found, like, interesting other ways to not necessarily balance myself out, but I've been more in the moment, just trying to figure out what is making me feel certain things and why. Yeah. And so in that sense, I know that a lot of people have in the categories of doing, not doing, freezing because they're afraid, or not being able to facilitate the next step because they get overwhelmed. I have noticed that because of my background and the fact that being a woman of the South, that I was told at a very early age that, no, you can't do that. And usually my first instinct of, no, you can't do that, is, okay, well then hold my beer, watch this. So when people say, no, you can't do that, I'm usually like, okay, well then how can I make that work? Which now I have to be more picky about what things I'm going to go for.
Right. So you're saying that like, whereas you may have taken something as a dare almost in the past, now when someone says you can't do that, you can recognize that it's a dare, but you don't actually have to take it on. And you can be like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there was very few things, but there were some things I was like, yeah, let's see about that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so like, what are the stages, I guess, or what changed for you to recognize, like in this process of understanding yourself, right? And in this process of becoming like a whole human being who feels more fulfilled and satisfied in her life, and someone who feels like she's living authentically, not just to like prove someone wrong, but because it actually means something to you. Like what's changed in your life for that to feel like that?
I think probably the biggest thing that's changed is that I feel more connected with the moment. So in that sense, that understanding every moment changes and every moment is passing, and you need to make the most of it, especially, you know, whether or not you're 20, whether or not you're 30 or 40, you know, first of all, you don't know how long you're going to be here. You could only live to 30. I mean, that's happens. I did have a friend recently who died from a brain tumor, which it was very unexpected. But, you know, you don't want to, I feel like you don't want to, first of all, squander your opportunities or say, oh, I can't do that because X, Y, and Z. When if you're interested in it, it's not going to hurt anybody. You're thoroughly thought it through. Then do whatever, you know, or reach out and try to grow in yourself, because those kinds of experiences will cause you to manifest and, you know, be a better person, or just have a different point of view, which might help someone else.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. There's so much in there that I identify with and think is important to hear someone say. Thank you.
Well, you know, the other thing about that is that like traveling has definitely opened my field of vision for a wide range of other issues that I did never realize in the first place, you know, because, you know, once you grow up in a little place, like I grew up in a bigger town, but, you know, if you grew up in a small town, you think, oh, that's the only thing. Like there's some aspects of that life that, yes, you can take those microcosms and blow them up and understand a lot of bigger picture ideas, but maybe you're not getting the full picture of like other people's feelings or backgrounds or understandings of how they perceive the world. And when you do that and you put yourself in their shoes and really truly understand what they're where they're coming from and how they're motivated, it makes interacting with those people a lot more genuine and a lot not necessarily easier. I mean, it does that too, but it kind of, you have a common bond in which even though they may not see it, you can interact with them in a more efficient, more, you know, like a more personable, one-on-one connective manner. That's,
just being more present almost.
Yeah, but I think kind of goes deeper than that. If you understand someone else's background, like if I tell someone that I'm from the South, they're like, oh, you're from the South. And I got this a lot when I was in Boston, where it's like, oh, you're from the backwoods. You don't understand about city life. And I'm like, excuse me, I would have this happen to me over and over again. For people that are in college, when I was way out of college and already lived a life, you know, and had a pseudo career. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand. So I try to put myself in other people's shoes and ask more questions. And I feel like that when you ask more questions from other people, you get not only a better understanding of where they're coming from, but in what they're not saying also tells you a lot about what they do say.
Oh, that's juicy. Tell me more about that. Do you remember any examples of Something like that?
Well, everybody has skeletons in their closets.
Sure.
Okay. And so regardless of how you feel and how you view, like maybe trauma in the background or maybe PTSD in the background, regardless of like how small an event something might have been, to you it might have been truly traumatic. Okay.
Yeah.
So regardless, I guess what I want to say is like, don't have other people judge you and take their judgment to heart, because what you feel is what you feel.
Right.
And you need to make yourself whole. Nobody else is going to do that for you.
Oh, yes. That's so true.
That is true. So whatever, in that sense, whatever you can do to make yourself a better person, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if the better person for you means make yourself more whole, make yourself feel more calm in your own body, let alone in some, the world, if you're more comfortable with yourself, you're going to be more comfortable in the world, and other people will see that. It's going to be very transparent, especially like going from the Bellydance community. That is definitely one thing I learned in Derby as well, because the body structures in that, especially for women, are not the typical yes, you may have I'm an athlete, but you have all wide range of body types. Yeah. And everybody can do such amazing things with their bodies. I did have a girl that she was a much bigger girl than me, and I was like, girl, and she was very timid when she was skating, and I was like, girl, if I had all that, you need to use that, because if I had that, I would use it. Oh my gosh, you have such an amazing body to be able to move all these people over here. Don't be afraid, girl, because you could do so much with that. And the same thing with small people, big people, it doesn't matter. Use everything to your best ability and be happy and joyful about it, because so what you can do, nobody else can do.
That's right. That's right. And I love hearing this from you, because you have such a connection to your physical body, having gone through all of these different movement styles, right? Like belly dance and derby and taekwondo are very different from one another. And yet they all attracted you for one reason or another. And your body was appreciative of what it had to offer you. And I think that that's something that we don't necessarily talk about in the world. It's like maybe people go to a yoga class, or maybe they just go for a walk outside. And I feel like there are so few people who take the time to just sort of like center themselves and feel what it's like to be in their body and really experience the intelligence and sort of like the intelligence that our body has to share with us, right? Like our body holds trauma, our body or stress anyway, and our body is able to heal like incredibly. Like the other day I had an eye infection, and I went to get some antibiotics for it, and then the antibiotics they didn't have, and I went the next day, they still didn't have the antibiotics. By the time they had the antibiotics, my eye had healed itself. I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I love my body. Is there anything about authenticity that we haven't touched on that you wanted to share with us or talk about?
Oh, wow. I guess it's more of a thought. Like, I never understood bucket lists.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that probably they're a good jumping off place for a lot of people who are not necessarily so in the moment, like, I will do this now.
Yeah.
But maybe something to that effect, like making a list, because even my roommate has a really hard time like starting projects, finishing projects, and I don't have that like fear of finishing. Do people have a lot of fear of finishing? Like they don't know what's coming up next, like this is the best thing that's ever happened in their life, I can't start another project? Is that what happens in that finishing thing?
That's interesting. I don't know. I think that that's not something that keeps me behind either. But if you're watching this and you identify with that, please tell us in the comments what that's about.
I mean, it's something I thought about. I also, I have other side projects in which I keep on the back burner, but I have it in my head. I don't have it on, like, a bucket list. Like, I don't have, like, I in my lifetime I want to go to Paris and I want to see this and that and that. I'm like, why would you make a bucket list if you're not going to do it?
Yeah, I had I was watching something a couple weeks ago, and I forget who it was, but they were saying it's not just like there's a bucket list, which is like all the things that I want to do before I die. And he said, I think what's more important is having a bucket list, like a list of things that I don't even care if I ever do. Like I don't want to do those things.
Oh, I think it's amazing. I find that question to be the most, for me, the hardest of like, oh, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what do I not want to do? I don't. How is that a question? Like, what do you want to do? And you're like, what?
It changes from day to day. I mean, I think that some of the things that have been most satisfying to me have been things that came to me sort of like out of nowhere with no like I didn't know that I wanted to do it until I knew that I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling, was that how paddling down the river happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I literally had a dream that I was canoeing down a river with my cats, and I woke up and told my friend Abby about my dream, and she was like, you're going to need a floppy hat. But she was like, I would pay money.
Pragmatic.
Yeah, she was like, I would pay money to see you try to paddle a river with cats. And so, like, that's what I started. Like, the very first thing I did, besides figuring out if it was actually possible to paddle the Mississippi, was how do I keep my cat safe? And then my other friend Amy got wind that I was thinking this, and she was like, the cats can't talk, Alyssa, but if they could, they would say, we don't want to go. She was like, she had 14 cats. She's like, come over to my house, like 14, 16, what's the difference? Like, it'll be like summer camp for them. So bless her, she kept my cats safe while I paddled. And I'm very glad that I didn't have cats with me. That would have been such a headache, and I would have felt so terrible if something had happened to them. But yeah, I had the original idea was just in a dream.
Mm-hmm. You know, the funny thing is, like you said, like when people say, or you get this idea to do it, like I feel like long-term things perhaps you should plan out, maybe an initial moment, start doing them.
Yeah.
Have also that come around where you start thinking, okay, so how is this actually going to be the end game, or where's this coming into fruition?
Yeah.
Like right now, I have in my brain to work on this book, and I've written down tons of stuff. I even have kind of an outline, but I haven't in my world grasped the verbiage or how to make my words come alive on a page yet. And I feel like right now I'm really working on that, especially in doing like my job right now. I feel like a lot of things in my life, even in yours, I'm sure you have this wide range of like interesting background that you can pull from either jobs or, you know, because you're not standing still and you're not like in the same moment, you're taking every moment that you can. And in doing so, you're able to generate something amazing and draw on all those experiences to create this moment.
Exactly.
And in that sense, I'm right now creating that moment in which I'm going to write a book, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think that even just creating this business, Awaken Authenticity, there's been a huge amount of like impatience on my part. Like, I want to get it done. Why haven't I done it? You know, I started thinking about it in February, and it's almost December, and like here I am, and I'm finally launching it. But it took me about a year, and to think about the process as I've gone along, I wouldn't do anything differently. Everything has happened stepwise, and I've needed to have everything in place the way that I did in order for the next thing to happen. And so sometimes it's a matter of like, I have this end goal, but I'm going to work through it in a way that makes sense. And sometimes I have to be patient with myself and sometimes and then other days, like just recording all of these interviews. I mean, this is a huge, like, nose to the grindstone kind of
that's a huge undertaking
experience. Sure. But there's been a lot that has not been nose to the grindstone. It's been very much just like be receptive to the ideas and thoughts that other people are presenting or that are just coming to you from various places, and it's all going to matter. I've got this huge notebook here that I've been keeping, just like scrawling notes about for months, and finally, like, I'm formulating everything that I'm going to be doing now. It's so exciting, and I would not have been able to formulate such a strong program without taking the time to do that research and sit back and let stuff come in.
That's true. I for people who are self-motivators, I think that understanding that patience is very key into creating a product is not exactly the right word, but an end goal maybe would be the better word, that you're happy with. Mm-hmm. To be okay with being patient with yourself and letting those steps fall.
Yeah.
But on the other spectrum of that, people who have problems with self-motivation or finishing things, to understanding that there is a process, and to make those steps work.
Yeah.
That's how you get to that end. And so some people, that's just intuitive, that you go, okay, yes, I want to do this, and so I've got to do this. And even though in this middle part that might be muddled, and you may have to be patient and be like, until I work this part out, this is not going to happen. So to get there, I'm going to have to really think about this and be patient and understand that that's coming, but I am actively working on it.
Yeah.
I
want to show you this thing. Focused on the journey. If you are enjoying the journey, then you'll be happy on all the days. And then when you reach your goal, you're extra happy. And then if you're focused on the destination, you're going to be like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And then when you finally get there, you'll be happy. Like, which would you rather be? Would you rather be happy the whole way because you're focused on the journey? Or would you prefer to be miserable most of the time and then only happy when you're focused on the destination?
Oh my gosh. This could be given to so many things in life, especially work life.
Yeah.
Like waiting for the weekend to be happy. Oh my goodness. That for me was a hard one, a really hard one.
Yeah. And
so I don't know.
Patrick Buggy was the person that I picked that from. So shout out to Patrick Buggy. So go ahead.
That was awesome. I will say that, there was times in my life that when I felt the most distraught, and whether or not it was work or life, there's times where, if you feel the most distraught, perhaps you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not doing the right thing for you. That is probably the best way to say that, because there's times that I've been doing other things that I'm like, you know what? I work, I pet sit, or I work at a call center, and don't be ashamed of that, because if you're paying the bills and you're doing your upkeep in life and making yourself happy, why would someone else be judging you? Because
totally.
Oh my gosh, they could be they could be making millions and not be happy with their life.
Totally. I mean, yeah, there's no shame in doing good work.
But I think a lot of people do put a little stigma to that, and I feel like it's unfortunate. I don't know. I feel like
screw them.
But on the other hand, as people are like, oh, well, you just work at the call center, you're like, you don't understand the full picture of everything. Like, let me just tell you a little bit of this, and then perhaps you will open up more. Mm-hmm. And then give me more also. So, open up. Anyway, you were saying the steps. Okay. People that are doing the steps and self-motivated was what I was going to say. It's like the other people that aren't self-motivated, or they get super overwhelmed with certain tasks or finishing tasks. I've had to also with my roommate who has problems finishing. And I'm like, has anxiety about finishing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't understand what this anxiety is. Like, when you get done, you're done. Like, put it away. You're finished. Do something else.
Yeah. Do you think she or he has a problem with like feeling like if they're finished, maybe it's not good enough? Is that sort of an issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's common.
I think that's common too. You know, I came to an epiphany I'm not going to say a long time ago, but quite a long time ago, about how, like, I would like to do things way over the top.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I knew about myself. And I always thought, oh, well, if I did this little more thing, if I could just get this little piece more, it would be that much more. But then I sat back and realized, like, people are from the outside looking in, they're going to see what you do and think it's amazing. Doesn't matter how many on top of whatever you thought might be perfect.
Yeah.
To have it completed.
Yeah, totally.
Is actually the perfect in itself. Like, if you've done it and you completed it, you're happy with it, or it's to the point where it can go out in the world and be on its own, you know, whatever that may be, a project, or, you know,
good enough is good enough.
Sometimes good enough is good enough. I do agree with that, but it was just kind of like this epiphany. It was like, I was baking a cake for a friend of mine, and it was like, oh, but it would be even more perfect if it had candles. Oh, if it would be even more perfect if it had this or that and the other. And sometimes less is more.
Yeah. We overlook the importance of simplicity sometimes.
It's true. And the other thing is that they're not going to look at that and go, well, you know, this would be really perfect if it just had because they're not going to think of that. Right. That was you. You thought of that. They're not going to think of that.
Yeah. And if you do have the time and energy to add those extra things, yay for you, but don't like base your self-worth on those sorts of things.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Erin. I really appreciate chatting with you.
Thank you. Yeah. It was a pleasure catching up, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. And so if you were sitting across the table from someone who was feeling stuck or frustrated in their life, and you wanted to give them a piece of advice, what would you tell them?
If you feel frustrated in your life, your body is telling you that you need to change something in order to be more fulfilled, more happy. That's what I would say. And if you need to take a moment or take quite a few moments, you know, a year to make that change possible, do it, because you'll be happier in the long run.
Yeah. Thank you. That's beautiful. I will talk to you soon, I hope.